What's up, everybody? This is Karak with ACG, and it's my continuing mission to bring you reviews that aren't 2 minutes long, filled with sponsor bullcrap, and delivered at the speed of embargo. And of course, today's titillating title is Rising Stars Earth Dawn. Now, in Japan, this was originally known as Earth War, and it's now being ported over. It's coming for PS4, PC, and Xbox One. Think half futuristic gunslinging Odin Sphere, half Bud K catalog trying to sell you those crazy-ass replica swords, all sort of wrapped up into a nice alien invasion story, and you pretty much have it. It's a 2D action RPG hunting, upgrading, slicing, dicing, shooting, and looting title. Let's see how it did, shall we? As always, if you like the video, maybe subscribe. So here is my review for Earth Dawn, a world where glasses literally make you smarter, giant-headed paper cutout marines, and Odin Sphere without the guns. And, well, Odin. Graphics are up first. So yeah, imagine Odin Sphere as seen through the eyes of people growing up where Starship Troopers and Warhammer 40,000 were real, and you probably get the idea of what this game is originally trying to deliver in a 2D spectrum. Now, I think across this fiction, it does an okay job sort of passing on that original theme, but the problem is that other places it has some issues. Now, first up, animation is acceptable with various attacks and reactions to all of them meted out on our 2D paper cutout characters, though I have to admit, I would have loved far more variation on those attacks, especially things like the laser rifle being held and firing pretty much like a shotgun. If there is instantly one thing that's recognizable though, and here it's a weakness, is the level design, which somehow finds a way to be even less inspired than games of the same genre. It's like someone found a collection of Bob Ross's old failed paintings if Bob Ross liked to paint fucking rocks and never-ending subway steps, because, you know, that sounds like a blast. And sadly, even much later on when you're exploring some pretty insane locations, nothing is really show-stopping, and the game's almost utter refusal for varied and active backgrounds means it's getting samey fast, and it really just feels like playing in front of static oil paintings. Now, you spend an inordinate amount of time running through not only boring straight platform areas, but just overall lackluster locations. The weird thing is, each time you travel to a new place, you're sort of hoping that the backgrounds will get to perhaps somewhere around Odin Sphere's level, but they never really come close, and most of the time areas are so rote that return visits can be a hassle because what looks like location 102 is actually location 109, and it's also got an incline. Ooh. Now, I'm sure you're listening right now thinking, man, does he just hate everything? Absolutely not. One thing I did like is the overall characters' designs, from the gray as cadavers main characters with the missing eyes of the NPCs and their growing depository of death-dealing weapons, to all the enemies and even the main boss characters, which can actually look pretty goddamn fantastic. Now, unfortunately, as the warning says, I can't show anything after 3 hours, but some of these characters, especially bosses that fill the entire screen with remnants of everything around them, is on a level that's hard to actually be matched, and I really like that. Now, are they worth trudging through forest number 34 for the 43rd time? Maybe not, but once you get to them, they're still pretty cool. It all turns at a healthy clip, and there isn't a lot of FPS hits, but you will notice them if there's a lot of particle effects on screen. And that's something you notice right away, is there's a lot of post-processing effects, a lot of particle effects, and it really does bathe the entire game in a certain look. Unfortunately, it's a little bit like throwing a rave at a cardboard factory. It's the world's awesomest look at the world's most boring location. I guess I have to say this, as a package, Earth Dawn sort of sees more issues than I would have ever hoped, and it's a game where its very gameplay allows those issues to come to the forefront, and it's very hard to ignore them. Sound, music, and voice.
作戦開始は12時間後。それまでに各人、武装準備を完了せよ。
And of course, sound is up first in this trilogy of audio awesome, and it's not so bad. And while the lack of a 3D element sort of turns down a bit of the information that you would normally get, there are some various sound effects that I was really surprised with, and there's little things like the complex rattle of guns with many different tonal layers, or the different sounds of weapons striking off blocks and so forth. You know, it's not incredibly detailed at all, but there is some thought here and there, and for the first time, when you hear those land sharks bust out of the fucking ground like it's Seal Sunday on the African coast and you're the main course, the ability to hear the rocks smash and the whoosh of their massive predator bodies flying around is actually sort of cool. Okay sound. And of course that brings us to music. Now this is hit and miss. While many different levels have almost no music at all, others will be replete with it, with a ballad to the space hero and everything from rock and roll guitars wailing out death knells to enemies dying at the end of your serrated Bud K blade, to sort of sing-song moments that feel heroic without resorting to what sounds like an entire brass band following you around. It's okay, but ultimately it's music that can get lost in the shuffle, and that's a bit unfortunate. Voice. So, while it's not dubbed, so it sure does sound like everyone cares about what's going on, it's actually pretty much everywhere, and I like the fact that almost everything within the game is voiced. That's very cool. Subtitles tell the tale here, and while I generally am happy with the information, I did find that little parts like info messages had some grammar or syntax errors. Overall, though, I would say that it's spoken throughout, just not 100% sure what they're saying sometimes. Gameplay. So let's talk a little bit about story. After decades of peace, the Earth was decimated by this invasion force known as the EBE. Now, the EBE moved across the planet, consumed everything in their path, and as aliens are wont to do, they couldn't be hurt by our weapons. But like some kind of futuristic Nazi doctor, the geniuses decided that merging alien technology with our own did the trick and allowed us to solidly put foot to alien ass. And you are a member of those special squads, and you basically start the game with a little bit of customization, and then you're outfitted with enhanced alien tech. Now, you rush out to perform missions in specific locations, starting out in New York, until the aliens get pissed and decide that you're worth caring about, and then they proceed to send a metric shit ton of human-hating alien hordes straight at your face. If you win that battle, you open up a new area to explore. If there's one thing I realized while playing this game, it's that let's hope aliens that attack us are this lethargic. Now, one of the parts of the gameplay loops I really liked is the fact that you engage in battles as time runs down to the next counter-offensive, and this keeps you moving the story forward, because if you fail the counter-offensive, aliens mount ever-increasing attacks on you, but you always get a couple more chances to go out and explore and hunt and get more items and do some more leveling in between. Though even if you move on, you can always return, and every mission tells you the items you'll get, the skills you'll unlock, and any specific requirements up front. But it is sort of cool, because it can just consistently remind you to move forward. Now, the one thing that fascinated me personally is the skills system itself. It employs a section of the brain style choosing mechanic, where you choose size of the brain to harness and increase in efficiency that have to do with attack, defense, or using technical skills. It's sort of like rewiring your brain pan. Once you do that, you dive into this freakishly robust system of skills and attribute bonuses. It's crazy. For example, as you level up, you might unlock a skill that gives you a +1 to attack, but the best part is you actively link that to whatever attack you want, and you may have unlocked later, whether that be, say, the first of a 3-part strike combo, or the third part, or even a special attack, allowing you to link various moves so that your hard-hitting striker on first blush is one type of character, or perhaps your special skills hit like a goddamn extinction level event. And you can mix and match them, and you can have different profiles so you can switch between them. This really does mean that you not only have character, plus customization, plus gun, plus armor to sort of equal what you can do. It is very, very cool. Now, at any time you can switch from, say, a defensive style of gameplay by rewiring your brain to an offensive one by choosing a new part of your brain to augment, and it of course lists out the bonuses and penalties you will receive if you do it. It's really profound, and it is absolutely deep. It's one of the coolest skill sections I think I've ever seen. The number of skills, from environmental resistances to increases to bonuses and to new attacks, is just insane. Luckily, control is fairly solid throughout, offering you a solid feeling of seeing those skills play out on the battlefield, and you're in control for the most part. I think my only problem would be the game's occasional reliance on double tapping a direction to change said direction, which seems overly complex and cumbersome and not really connected to any reasoning that I could find. In the end, dashing around behind an enemy, lining them up for a wicked World Blade attack, and then dropping from that attack into a plethora of enemies like some goddamn heavenly alien smiting device was actually really cool and never got old. However, there's another system in play, and that's the crafting system. Now, you can craft equipment out of items you gather, as that is the very heart of a hunting game, and that is pretty much what this is. Once you've crafted items like guns, swords, throwing weapons, equipment to wear, and changes your overall look, as well as something like your armor, and you can also increase its ability, raising its levels by using materials you've gathered, and doing so requires energy, which you also get from breaking down those materials. So the game system sort of stops that unending cycle of improvement and keeps you at a pace that isn't game breaking. So you have to decide if you want to break down those rare items for some serious energy, or keep them for creating that gun of smoting an entire screen of aliens +5. It's a really cool system, and while utterly confusing at first, it starts to settle down as you sort of work your way through. Here's the entire problem, though. Where a game like Odin Sphere excels in its exploration of combat across various categories of interesting locales, Earth Dawn does far less with its interesting fictions. Some games speak to a very particular group, and even more rarely they speak to a group within a group, and that's what this game is in a nutshell. It speaks to a group that is actually sectioned out of the Odin Sphere group. where Odin Sphere seeks to speak to the action role-playing hunting elements and combines them with a batshit crazy but pretty ultimately intriguing story in a unique land. Earth Dawn rips all that out and then rips out the unique land, and you get blasted waste after blasted waste that do an unfortunately good job of reflecting the enjoyment you're probably going to get as you continue to play the game. And I mean, seriously, this has to be some of the most boring sets of locations I've seen in a game in ages. And because the game's hunting elements drive everything in the title, you start to have accumulation issues, even at the cost of missions experience. For example, if you go out to grab, say, 5 bird beaks that are needed for mission completion, you can be greeted with a mission over message as enemies are quite literally still dive bombing your face because you got those 5. But that also means that if you needed 10 beaks to create that awesome new weapon, guess what? You have to pick that mission again and restart it instead of exploring further to get another 5. The only way to describe it is imagine an open world game where it asks you to go out and win some races, but then warns you if you drive for longer than 0.3 miles, we're sending you home to give some high fives to your home slices. It's infuriating as a game device in all ways. Fun factor. Yeah, so at first, sure, but sometimes you can literally feel the desire for a game to see the success of another title in that same genre, and here Earth Dawn groans with that desire. It has a complete and utter noticeable want to be Odin Sphere with guns. Sort of like Saints Row 1 wanted to be GTA, but it took later titles to do so. There's something here that could be a contender, but right now it's screaming for attention, and once you look at it, it does almost nothing with it except for an amazing crafting and skill system. So as you guys know, I rate games on a buy, wait for sale, rent, or never touch it again rating scale. This is actually a rent. It's one of those games that does have some fun parts to it, but unfortunately, the actual exploration is so truncated, and there are so many issues with the gameplay loop and the way it doles out information, as well as the way it doles out equipment and items. The fact is that repetitiveness absolutely slams it right where it shouldn't, and that's in displaying all the weaknesses that the game has. So anyway, that's it for me. I hope you guys liked the video. If you did, give it a thumbs up. Maybe check out Reddit or Patreon. That's how I continue to give you good reviews. If you dislike it, make sure to give it a thumbs down. And as always, if you want reviews that aren't 2 minutes long or filled with sponsored bullshit, stick with ACG. Peace out and enjoy the rest of your week.